Welcome back to Harrowings live from the bunker. This is Hal and Tara Nage and Ever Engine have joined. Good to have you. I like to ask people how they are, where they are, and who they are. Because a lot of times it's hard to tell just from these flags. I see Tara Nage, you actually subscribe to people at a paid level. That's wonderful to hear. Substack's a great platform for that. Harrowings is just scraping the surface, and that tends to be what I do on an evening like this. Got the candles flickering over here in the corner and about to head off to bed, but I thought I'd check in with my subscribers. I'm so grateful to the 712 of you who I notice now are subscribing to Harrowings. 14 have paid for subscriptions, which is wonderful. That makes them my board of directors, and I appreciate that. I'm not going to keep this very long because I think short and snappy tends to work. Got recent podcasts up from Jay Blakesberg and Jessica Alpha. Check those out if you want to. I've also been doing some talking to some other folks. Harrowings podcasts, a place to find those. They're also out on YouTube as well as here on Substack and Spotify and Acast and Apple Podcast and all that. As my lives go out there too, automatically. I love that about Substack, that when you do one of these little go lives, it pushes it out on multiple channels where people can pick it up. And if they pick up what I'm laying down, it makes me happy. And the main thing I'm laying down is the philosophy of life where we support each other, where every cent we spend is a vote for the kind of world we are co-creating, and that we are all in this together. We collectively can change the world if we're willing to, but we need to be willing. Hello, Harriet. Good to have you with us. Um, I've been sort of busting my head trying to figure out what I'm going to do next in life beyond filming the passing show, as I tend to do, and having the Pairings podcast. Harriet, we have to have you back soon. Hi. Um, and, you know, I just keep thinking we're not really milking the best we can out of the platform of Substack while it's still ad free, while it's still really, community driven. I think there's a lot we can do. I like the okay. Thank you. Hi, Pam Wade. Good to have you. You're out in the left coast, I believe, right? You were with us for Jay Blakesberg, if I'm not mistaken. I'm grateful to all y'all who are paying subscribers of different Substacks out there. If you want to be a part of my board of directors, easiest way to do it is just pony up a paid subscription here on Substack. That's how people become part of my board of directors of the Harold B. Gill Foundation, LLC, which seeks to preserve the creative legacy of the Harold B. Gills that have graced the planet with our presence, my grandfather, my father, and myself. And yeah, there's a lot of material out there about that I put on Substack as well. I need to sort of segregate it. The stuff that's more about the LLC and the stuff that's Harrowings is more about me raking up the surface of my creative life and seeing what sprouts, what takes root. And it could be a field of weeds the way it's going because I've got so many ideas. And of course, a weed is just a flower that's showed up unbidden. Oh, let's see. What else do I want to talk about? We have already talked about how every single cent we spend is a vote for the kind of world we are co-creating as Homo economicus. We can do a lot of good that way. We can also volunteer our skills and serve others. And all of our activity is work, right? That's what I keep thinking. And the way in which we imagine things, the creative work we do, sometimes my creative work is just not putting my hands in the machinery, as withdrawing and practicing absence rather than presence. And that's been a big part of the last, 130 days or so. I have to look at my calendar to figure out exactly how many days it's been since I've been practicing absence from a big part of my life in the past. I transformed it where suddenly just sort of cut off a big part of my practice. And I go into that in other writings. I don't need to go on to it now. But I wanted to see how it would feel and how my community would react. And it's been interesting. There are a few people in my community who have picked up what I'm laying down. There are a fair number who have basically seem to be unconscious of it, or it just doesn't hit the radar. It doesn't get any attention. And attention is that commodity that is so precious. Every second we spend paying attention to each other is another second that we can't get back, right? It's a huge investment. And you all are being so generous to pay any attention to me at all. And I just want to recognize that for a minute. Um, to be awake and aware is really difficult for most of us. We are part robot, robotic automatons doing things, and we don't think about it, right? The machinery that runs us largely is unconscious, but it has a tremendous impact on us bodily, right? We are embodied and we are not our minds, even though I think a lot of times we feel like we have this mind body split. It's not true. And a lot of the things we tell ourselves about ourselves and our motivations aren't true either. They're constructs, they're plausible. And in many cases, we deeply believe them. However, a lot of times it's being shaped by our unconscious selves, our gut biome, for instance, the gut intelligence, all of these things that are making us up. I think to myself a little bit about the cordyceps, I think it is, fungus that attacks ants and makes them into little zombie machines. Um, this is not too different than we are. We are like smart housing for bacteria. It's one way of looking at us. We are given the idea that we are cognizant, conscious agents of our own volition, but we're deeply interconnected. We are interbeing with all life on the planet, as I think Thich Nhat Hanh would call this art of interbeing and seeing the connection and feeling at one with everything in the cosmos. We are significant in that aspect, but so is everything else. There is no privileged center. I like what Nicholas Kazanis said, Nicholas of Cusa, that God is an intelligible sphere whose center is everywhere and circumference is nowhere. I don't know. I just know how things seem to me. I could be wrong. I'm really interested in following Mayor Baba, as most of you will have picked up by now, but I'm also highly skeptical. I'm a theosophist. On the one hand, I like esoteric stuff. I like to read Mitch Horowitz, for instance, on Substack. And I'm interested in a lot of other things, too. A lot of the writers who are out there, people's minds, they're bright, they're flashing, and they're reaching out to each other to find those tendrils of the mycelia. When I think about that, I think about mycelia as a kind of construct of a blockchain sharing of music that Imogen Heap started up some time ago. I don't know where it stands right now, but she was in the Blockchain Revolution book by Dan Tapscott, which I have around here somewhere. I got into that, I guess, about 2015, 2016, that time frame. I went to a conference down at the Gaylord International on enterprise architecture, and the keynote was the Blockchain Revolution talk by Don Tapscott. And I was kind of fascinated. And of course, that was a time when Bitcoin was becoming a thing and it was going up around, several $100s a Bitcoin. I didn't buy any. And then I thought, well, it's a big investment. But eventually I got on board with that. And now I'm sitting there watching and holding on for dear life. I'm in that mode with what a small investment, a small chunk of change I managed to set aside into that asset. What else do I want to tell you all about? God, there's so much, my mind's on fire all the time with ideas. I believe we have the opportunity to take our technologies and integrate them in such a way that we can realize the greatest happiness of the greatest number of species on the planet if we're willing to do it. But we need to invest in these things. I've been talking since probably the spring with my good friend Jack, who's an architect and kind of blows me off. I go off on these topics. That our purpose may be to make self-replicating technology and self-evolving technology in such a way that it can transcend biology. And when our planet becomes inhabitable, our mechanical, offspring will be out there having populated the solar system and on into the galaxy. And that may be why we're here, to instantiate that and survive long enough to be able to train up our offspring to do that. We're not on the right path with AI right now. I'm pretty sure it's just calculation, probabilistic stuff. And a lot of people seem to think that it's something more than that, but it's really not. And it's not going to be able to be let off the leash, and it's not going to be able to teach itself anytime soon in a way that's going to be really meaningful, because that's all it's doing is calculating. There isn't anything there making sense of it. It says stuff that sounds sensible. Sure enough, it simulates language in good constructions, and it can go off and do research and format it in ways that sound like conversation. Wonderful. But that's calculation. It's not conscious. It's not, and we don't even understand consciousness entirely, although I think it's a field from which all that appears to be emerges. I think that our constructs that we generate in our brains tend to make reality, because it's really quark soup we're looking at out there. It's like I start to classify things as this is that and that's this, and things change with my brain changing. It's like old Wayne Dyer used to say. I don't know if all you all will remember Wayne Dyer, but he said, that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I think that's a lot of truth in that. Thinking to see my fire is dying down just to a glow in the fireplace, and therefore I'm probably going to roll on into bed. But I did want to check in with everybody and say thank you so much for being a subscriber to Harrowings, and being a paid subscriber would help me so much. I really don't have enough of those to really keep doing this as my sole source of income. There are 14 of my friends out there who are paid subscribers, and they are my board of directors. So if you want to be part of the board of directors of the Harold B. Gill Foundation, LLC, come on board. It's not terribly expensive, I don't believe, and I could use all the support I can get. I know that there are a number of you who do subscribe to others. I also do so to the extent possible. I'm beginning to have to turn the taps to a bit so that I'm not going through my savings too quickly, but I'm going to have to find a day job apparently, or something. I'm thinking about selling off some of my stuff on eBay because I've got a lot of stuff, and I'm really grateful to be here, grateful to be anywhere. I like to say that. I also like to remind people every cent we spend is a vote for the kind of world we are co-creating. And if we don't like the world we're seeing, remember we have to look at our part in it, and we can together do things to change it. We need to connect with each other. We need to be respectful of each other. We need to listen to each other. If people have bright ideas of how we can go further, faster, better, cheaper, let's hear them. And let's see if we can amplify those signals through the noise. And that's about all I got tonight, guys. Thanks for joining, and be the change you want to see in the world.